Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm going to be trying to build a forest aquascape in the tank that's right behind me. I've been wanting to build one of these for a while now. I think I have all the materials that we need, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's start out here with the tank that we're using, guys. This is a Denalair Shrimp King tank. It's a complete setup. We got a picture of Chris on there. Looking good, dude. But this is going to be a great tank for the forest aquascape, primarily because it has some really good dimensions to it. So I think it's about a foot deep and maybe close to that height-wise. Not 100% sure. We'll measure it once we get it out of the box here. This is a little bit deceiving, but let's go ahead and open this up and see what's inside. I know that it comes with a filter and a light that we can see here. Not sure if we're going to use both of these. Let's see what else it comes with. It also comes with a lid, I believe. We can just slide this piece off here. Kind of interesting how it's packaged. I like that. Now, I got this tank from Aquarium Co-Op the last time I was up there. I don't believe that Corey sells these online, but if you're local, you can definitely go and pick one up. I'm sure he's got a couple left over. So let's go ahead and keep getting this thing out here. This tank is looking really nice. It's like a two-piece tank, so it's got the curved glass on the front here. It's looking really, really good. The lid for the tank sits in the bottom. We'll set that here for now. And then in the bottom of the cardboard piece here, it had a nice little foam bottom for the rimless tank. That's perfect. Taking a closer look here at the filter, it looks like we have one that will sit in the corner of the tank. This would be great for, you know, a lot of different setups, but probably in the scape that we're going to be setting up this, I don't think I want to have this in there. It's just going to take up some room, but definitely, you know, a good filter for a lot of other different types of scapes. It has a little spray bar, and then we of course have the light over here. Not sure if we're going to end up using this. I think during the setup we'll use it as just like some accessory lighting, but we'll probably eventually move on to use a Fluval Nano LED just to get a little bit more light and a little bit more controllability for the aquascape. This area of the room, if you guys have been following along, you know that this is Richard's spot. Richard obviously isn't over here. He is now over in this corner of the room next to something that might be happening soon, but he's just chilling over here. We need to rescape his tank as well at some point. Not my best work here, but we'll get to that. We want to create this tank over here first. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to pick out what kind of livestock we want to have in it. Let's get started on building this hardscape though. So I have a few things over here. We have some dragon stone. These are some smaller pieces that used to be bigger pieces. I just ended up breaking them with a hammer to get some smaller stuff, and on the bottom here there's even smaller rubble. That should be good. We might have to break up that a little bit more. You'll see why we want small pieces in a little bit. But then we have some substrate here from Brightwell. They sent me this a while ago. So we have some laterite clay that we can put at the bottom. And then we also have some of their Rio Cafe extra small nutrient substrate that we're going to be laying down. It's the brown type. I think this is going to go perfect with the scape we're trying to make. So the first thing we're going to do is lay in a little bit of the laterite. This is a good bottom layer. It's going to help absorb nutrients and provide those nutrients to the plants that eventually make their home in this tank. So we're going to lay in just a little bit of this stuff kind of throughout the bottom of the tank evenly, and then we're going to come in and we're going to pour in a little bit of the active substrate. This is going to help to reduce the pH, the KH, and the GH and make it more of a soft water environment. I'm going to put more of this stuff on either side of the scape and a little bit more in the back relative to the front, and this might change later on, but we just want to get a foundation of this stuff down so we can start playing around with our rocks. Now that we have some of that substrate in place, I'm going to start to play around with the dragon stone that we have. Now, I originally wanted to do this with some small lava rocks, some of the black lava rocks that I've been using in the past, and I just didn't have enough for this project. I was kind of out of it, to be honest with you. So we're going to go with the dragon stone. I think this is also going to add a little bit of a different flavor to the scape. Most of the forest type aquascapes that I've seen use a darker stone or something in it. A lot of it ends up getting covered with plants and things like that, but I think by using this kind of orange brownish stone, it's going to give us a little bit more of a unique aquascape. So once we have a layer of rocks in place, these are going to change later on, guys, but once we have those in, we're going to go and we're going to start to use the manzanita wood that we also have for this project. So the wood is going to be the highlight of the forest, right? So here I have a ton of this stuff, all sorts of different shapes and sizes. A lot of them, I guess if there's a common theme between all of them, is that they're fairly upright, meaning that they don't have a ton of crazy bends in them or anything. We want to have kind of like straight upright tree trunks, but there are more than a few pieces that have some bends and some, you know, organic shapes to them. We have some smaller pieces and we have some larger pieces that we're going to put in the front of the aquarium. So something that's really common with the forest theme aquascape is a really good sense of depth. And so to create that, we're going to have these larger, thicker pieces in the front and then smaller, thinner pieces towards the rear of the aquarium. And that's going to really help that illusion of a forest that we're kind of like looking down and getting a good sense of depth in. This is the part that takes the longest amount of time. We have to go through a ton of trial and error, placing in pieces of wood, thinking that they're in the right spot, and then realizing that we don't like them there and that we need to move them. And so we're going to kind of loosely fit these sticks all throughout the tank until we get to a point where we feel like we have something that could be a long-term aquascape. And as I'm going through this process, the pieces that I know for sure I want them to be in that particular spot, I grab some Gorilla Gel type super glue and I glue the pieces of wood to the smaller pieces of dragonstone that they are more or less sitting on top of. It's really important to glue these pieces for a couple of reasons. I mentioned earlier that this wood was already waterlogged, so these pieces, if we just stuck them in the substrate, would probably stay in place, but we want them to be more tightly fixed to something like what we're doing with the glue and the rocks, because when we go in and we try and, you know, do maintenance on this tank, if they're not fixed to something, at least loosely fixed at the bare minimum, they're going to move around. It's going to be a nightmare to perform maintenance on this aquarium, and it's already going to be crazy to do our regular maintenance on a tank like this, but we just want to make sure that we're creating a scape here that's going to be as easy for us to work on as possible. So part of that is making sure that these sticks stay in position. We're about halfway done now with the project, I'd say, and I'm done using the manzanita wood. Our pile over here is just basically, I'm left with these pieces that are just a little bit too short, and I don't have exactly what I want to fill things out. So what I'm going to do, I'm pretty much all just working in the back right now. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to start to use some pieces of spider wood. So this is a pack of just random spider wood twigs that you can get on aquariumcoop.com, and you can see here this stuff is really, really thin, and I think it's going to be perfect for filling out the back of our forest to create the illusion that those trees are really far away. Now, I already have 2 of these spider wood sticks in here, and I bet you can't even tell which ones they are. They look very similar, and once they're waterlogged and they've been treated by the water after a few weeks, you shouldn't be able to even tell that they're 2 different types of wood. So if you were wondering, it's this piece right here and this kind of long one sticking out of the tank. They are slightly a different color, but like I said, once things get seasoned a little bit and the tank's filled up for a while, shouldn't be able to tell the difference. And some of these pieces down here, I mean, we're going to be able to get really creative, and I think we're even going to be able to create some kind of accessory branches on some of the trees. I also have some of this Sangani wood over here, the roots. I don't want to use a ton of it, but that's something that might come into play as well. We'll just have to keep scaping and see what happens. Okay guys, so here is, I think, the final product. Alright, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Let's go over a few things here. So obviously there's a lot more of the really thin spiderwood sticks that are in the back there. Those are just pushed down into the substrate. So those are going to be really tough to clean around. I mean, we'll just deal with that when we get to it. There's just no way to really fix them into position any better than just sticking them into the substrate. So we also have some really thin twigs that were added down here. Again, the spider wood, those for the most part are super glued in place. Some of them are just kind of wedged in there tightly, but I think that kind of gives it a little bit, just a higher attention to detail that really gives the scape something more to look at, and I think that helps out a lot. So I'm liking the way that things look here. I added in another big piece here, another tree trunk to kind of fill out the left side, and then I did add a couple more twigs branching off of this kind of main big tree trunk here on the right. I think things are the way that I want them. Now I did have this idea to add a stream to this scape, and what I mean by that is by adding in some lighter colored sand that starts in the back here, kind of breaks right here, with maybe having this rock in the back here being a point of like a waterfall, and then it runs through here. We're not going to do that today, but it's just something that we could do in the future to change the scape if we get bored of it or we think it would add something cool to it. Let's get a shot of it up here just so you can see everything in the back. There's another shot of those sticks. They're all just kind of poked in here. But some of them, like this one's attached to a rock. These ones are loose, but they're in there good enough. I don't think they're going to float up. We're going to test that here in just a second. We're going to fill the tank up and see how our hardscape does here. But I'm crossing my fingers. I think things are going to be good. So what was once a 10-gallon aquarium is now a roughly 6.5-gallon aquarium. And that's kind of crazy. It's something that you don't think about, but you have to know, because when you pack in this much hardscape and substrate, you do decrease the overall volume of your tank, and that can be really important, especially when dosing things like fertilizer and especially medications. So we'll throw that in as like a little extra beware of situation. Looks like we only have one stick that floated up. I don't know where that was, probably over there on the right side, but no big deal. Once it waterlogs here, we can just poke it back down in there somewhere and we should be good to go. At this point, I decided I wanted to add in a few extras. So here I have some alder cones that will eventually sink down to the bottom of the tank. They're great for shrimp tanks. It's a good feeding material for them. They can get biofilms off of it. And I also decided to add in an Indian almond leaf. So I just crushed this up, sprinkled it on top of the tank. All of this stuff will eventually sink once it becomes waterlogged. It usually doesn't take too long. And this, again, is another really good source of food for shrimp. Not saying that this is going to be a shrimp tank. It's definitely a possibility, but I think it just goes with the overall theme, and it also helps to add in a little bit more detail to the floor portion of the scape. It's now the next day, guys, and you can see I've drained the tank down. Our water was looking pretty tannin filled, no surprise there. The manzanita and the spiderwood, they're not the biggest tannin leachers. That's a common side effect of adding in Indian almond leaves and the alder cones. We didn't add a ton, so I'm a little surprised why it was so murky, but we just drained it down. We're gonna fill it back up now and really round this thing out. Still got a few pieces that are floating up here, but give it a couple days and those will all be down to the bottom of the tank with a lot of these other pieces. So I'm happy with the way the scape looks. Obviously, the only thing that we have left to do is plant the tank. We're unfortunately not going to be doing that in today's video. We're waiting on a bunch of moss that we need. We need a ton of it for this tank, obviously, but that does raise kind of an important question, I guess. And that is, can you just leave a tank like this the way it is? And the answer to that is absolutely. It did cross my mind to just let this kind of be a tanniny, kind of almost like a mini South American biotope tank. Just do no plants and throw in, you know, a small school of some small tetras and kind of have like a natural-ish environment for them or something close to that. But I think we're going to stick with the main theme for the tank, which is just to deck this out with a ton of green, a ton of moss, some hair grass, just a few other plants, and really turn this into a vibrant green forest. I think we have pretty much everything covered here. The only things that aren't on this tank that will eventually be on this tank is a filter, which we will not use the one that came with the tank, but we'll just throw on like a small hang on back filter there. That should be plenty, and it won't intrude with our scape too much. And then we will be adding CO2 to this tank, so we'll find a spot probably in the back here for a little diffuser, and then we'll just use a paintball setup to get that carbon dioxide into the tank. We may very well just stick with the Denalair light that came with the tank. I like that it sits really high up there. I think it has a decent color spectrum to it. The tank looks good. When we throw plants in it and we start to really get into caring for this tank, then we'll maybe change that up, or we'll leave it the same, who knows, but I think for now we're gonna go with it. Anyway guys, if you have any questions about this scape, leave them down in the comments. Also, don't forget to leave me suggestions for livestock for this aquarium. I have a loose idea of what I want to put in here, but I always love reading what you guys think I should put in here. Sometimes it helps me get like just the perfect idea. If you want to get some inspiration for some other tank setup ideas, I have a whole playlist that I made. It's linked down in the description. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.